What if the very system you dedicated your life to is the reason you feel stuck? I'm Dr. Amin, and I'm the creator of Clinic Launch. I walked away from the security of having a full-time job working in the hospital to chase my own freedom. And today, I'm going to tell you my story and how you can find your own freedom. For me, my journey started about 8 years ago when one day after I came home from work, my wife said to me that the children are asking if Papa still lives at home. Oh, absolute dagger to the heart. Am I right? I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I really thoroughly enjoyed my job. What I didn't enjoy was that I was missing my kids' childhood, I was missing family time, I was missing date nights, I was missing everything that happens in life because I was so busy working. For some backstory, I had started my own hospitalist group, and as the guy in charge, if someone else couldn't take a call or felt like they were too busy, I was the one that always had to step up. So there were times where I was on 24/7 call. It was very hectic. I was never home. I would leave before they got up and I would be home after they went to bed. And so something had to change. So before I opened up my own anti-aging clinic, I used to work as a hospitalist. I did my training, residency training here in Las Vegas. Once I finished, I joined a group that worked at the major hospital system here in town. And as a hospitalist, I was on call every other day for 24 hours. And I had every other weekend off. But I was doing so much work that when I covered the weekends, I had 2 other guys whose patients I had to see. So I was working quite a bit. Now, that only got worse, depending on how you look at it, when I decided to leave my group and start my own group. It was me, 2 other guys. We got together, we created a group, and we started bringing on doctors. And really, all that meant was that I now had even more responsibility. I had to oversee what they were doing. I had to check in with the MEC committees. There was so much more work, not to mention that if any of our new guys felt like they were overworked, overwhelmed, couldn't take on any more patients, myself or one of the other 2 partners, we would take over the load. Right? At one point, I think I was seeing 40 to 50 patients a day as a hospitalist, which for any of you out there that are hospitalists or practice internal medicine, you know how nuts that sounds. I was essentially at the hospital 22 hours a day. I'd get a few hours of sleep a night, and even that was broken because the pager never stops. I will say, I absolutely loved being a hospitalist. It was probably the most joy I got in being able to help treat patients, figure out what was going on with them, and really just do the job. I think the thing I loved the best about it, or the most rather, was really that it was on my own time. Right? I could go in and I could see patients, I could take a break, I could go get lunch. There was no time frame. I wasn't relying on anyone else, such as in a typical office. However, some of the frustrations that I started to run into were mostly, the biggest one of course being that there was no time, right? Again, partially my own fault, but even a lot of the other guys I talked to that worked with the big mega corporations such as Sound Physicians, or even worked in other groups, the complaints typically were the same in that, whatever the hours were, however long I have to be in the hospital, all takes away from my ability to spend time with my family, my hobbies, traveling, whatever that looks like. So let's talk about the transition and how I got here. When I first thought about the idea of opening up an anti-aging clinic, it had started to grow as an industry, as a movement, as a branch of medicine throughout the United States. And I had been hearing things, I had seen that there were some conventions. And one day I was speaking with my wife, and I had a buddy in LA who had opened up a similar clinic, essentially doing Botox and IVs. And after we got to talking, I decided, hey, maybe we should open one here. Now, for full disclosure, at the time that I opened the office, it was not my intention to leave the hospital. I knew that I would have to do kind of a blend of working in the hospital with also trying to get this clinic up and running. Essentially, the transition was to slowly work my way out of the hospital, let my partners know that I was leaving the group. Ultimately, that decision was more based in the idea that I didn't want to one day just tell my partners, hey, I quit and I can't see patients anymore, especially given how big my patient load was. It could not be absorbed with the number of guys, or doctors rather, in the group at the time. So when figuring out what type of practice I was going to open, a big piece of the idea with a cash pay clinic was really the simplicity of what comes with a cash pay clinic. I don't need medical billers. I don't need to keep following up with the billers and the insurance companies or have any type of credentialing with insurance companies. At this point, 7 years later, I don't even have hospital credentials anymore. I have let them all lapse simply because I'm not typically there. In a normal doctor's office, everybody gets sick, people are generally older, and it's ideal to have hospital privileges to be able to go and see them when they're hospitalized. Part of the draw for me with the anti-aging longevity side, as far as the clinic type, was also the newness to what they provide, the different services that we offer. Currently, we do things such as ozone, IV therapy, hormone replacement. We do some hair restoration, so we've slowly expanded. And so what were some of my biggest fears, some of my biggest doubts? Well, if I'm gonna be completely honest, I thought I was invincible. And I think what that led to was me kind of diving in head first. I went to the bank, I took out a loan. I think all told it was about $550,000. My thought was, if I open one of these, it will magically just make money. Turns out that's absolutely not the case. I think a lot more of my actual fears and doubts started creeping in as we got closer. The process for me was quite a bit longer, since we had what's called a gray shell, which is just a bare bones building where we got to do the entire build out. So we designed the clinic, we got a construction company, some designers, and we talked through what it should look like, what it should feel like, and then we went through the whole process. But as we got closer to opening, the fear started kicking in, the doubts started to creep in about, what if this isn't successful? What if this doesn't work? What if I have to go back to the hospital? And I don't think any of those were unrealistic, especially, looking back now and realizing that we had no idea what we were doing. Part of what we went through was made a bit easier given my wife's background and having majored in business when she was in college. So there was information that she had and that she knew, but a lot of it really was just trial and error. And while there was fear, while there was doubt, I think one of the big things that pulled us through was simply realizing that I would only fail if I decided to quit. I think one of the other things that really helped was kind of preparing ourselves mentally and emotionally for anything that might come. Like I said, we got into it, we went head first, had no idea what we were doing. One of the most important things was just being open to everyone's criticism, calling audibles, and making changes. Right? When we first got started, things didn't work out exactly the way we wanted them to. We had to make some changes with our POS, our health record system, how we were getting patients acquired, but also what the workflow was when they first came into the office, and how they moved through the different parts of the office from coming in to leaving. At the end of the day, this is still a physician's office. Everything I do in this office absolutely requires my medical order for a patient to receive a service. However, the magic in what happens here is that when a patient comes in, they think they're in a med spa. I'm here to get an IV with my girlfriends, or we're pre-partying. It's a very exciting environment. Everybody's very happy and enjoy the process. But in reality, they do come into an office, they request a service, they meet a physician, a recommendation is made, we take vital signs, their medical treatment is offered, vital signs taken, and then they're discharged home. You would never know that when you go through the process of being a patient in my office. Also, if I could point out, one of the other big fears really was from the financial perspective. I was doing well in the hospital, but as a business and from other business people, my brother had even mentioned to me that, I shouldn't consider this to be a part of the whole. And so taking out this loan was for a separate business venture, which meant, no matter how anybody spun it, I'm still on the hook for over $500,000, and so it needed to be successful. One of the big things that really helped me get through that was realizing that if we focus on the services we offer and the customer service we give to the clients or patients that come into the office, everything else would fall into place. And that really was one of the big turning points. Is after we had opened, it was a few weeks in, and we kind of saw like, okay, this could work. People are coming in, they're seeing what it's about. We had people starting to come back and bring their friends. And so it was less being concerned about where and how will we make money, and more concerned about how do we continue to evolve and present the best possible product, and everything else will work itself out. And in fact, that is what happened. As I briefly just touched on, some of the things that we went through prior to opening, I did have to have discussions. It was a very big step, and I didn't want to jump completely headfirst in without knowing anything about what I was doing. And that really just means that I had discussions with my father-in-law, my dad, my brothers, anyone who had any business experience to try to help guide me in, was this a good idea? And really, a lot of it ended up being everyone playing devil's advocate. I think that we all can agree that in general, anyone in the medical industry, such as physicians primarily, we don't really learn about money. We don't learn about money management. And if we're not really sure of what that means or what this all looks like, right, then there isn't that, there's not the fire to make sure that you succeed. I had been successful in everything I had done up to this point, and I thought this would be very easy. Throw in some money, open an office, it'll magically work, right? But there was actually a lot of work. And I think that's really what everyone I had conversations with was trying to point out. Now, regardless of what they all said, if they were all trying to tell me not to do it, why did I do it? Well, it comes back to my reason, right? For me, the most important thing was trying to find an out from the hospital setting and the number of hours I was currently working. And those discussions I had with my wife, and it was much more, hey, what do we do and how do we get to a place where I get to enjoy, the freedom that should come with being a physician? I went to school, I did all this training, I took out all these loans. What good is all of that if I'm making money but I have no free time for my family? I will also point out there was someone I met, there was actually a couple, they were a husband and wife. We met them after we opened the clinic and they had a bunch of businesses. And we hit it off, and my wife and I tried to take them out to dinner to kind of pick their brains to give us some input, criticisms, and more ideas on how to adapt and evolve the business. And ultimately they ended up becoming our mentors and really did help us quite a lot along the way. I've made every mistake at least 2, if not 3 times. I've concisely put it all together so that if you're ready to take that same step and jump into opening your own anti-aging cash pay clinic, that you just follow the instructions, follow the blueprint that I've created, and your road to success will be much quicker and much smoother. Now, keep in mind, when I say much quicker, that's relative based on, a whole lot of different parameters. But of course, the goal is that you get to the same place that I'm at right now. So to reflect on my journey, it was very hard. If I had to do it again, I'm not sure I would if I think about the process itself. However, if I think about the end point and the success that I have now and the amount of free time I have now, and that I did reach the goals of opening this clinic, I would 100% do it again every single time. So if you've been dreaming of something bigger, trust that you are also capable of taking these steps and getting to the exact place I am, but doing it with many less mistakes and in a much more streamlined process. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and please feel free to leave any comments, any questions. I'll try to get to them all. The goal for me, I should say, is to start creating and fostering a community where we all work together to help each other grow and elevate our current lifestyles and our freedoms. So hit the like and subscribe button if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship, personal growth, health and wellness, everything that I'll be talking about on this channel.